Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. Manitoba is denying responsibility for the death of Crystal Musso. The 31-year-old mother was from Ebb and Flow First Nation. Musso died on May 25th, 2021, while COVID-19 positive. This after an attempt to airlift her from Brandon, Manitoba to a hospital in Ottawa. In March 2023, Musso's family filed a lawsuit against the Manitoba government, 3 unnamed defendants, and other health authorities. The suit claimed that Manitoba breached its duty of care leading up to her death and violated her charter rights to life, liberty, and security. It cited a lack of ICU beds, an inadequate air ambulance, and a failure to provide standard critical care as evidence. The province filed a statement of defense in June where it defended its actions and argued they did not violate Musso's charter rights. None of the allegations have been proven in court. The Manitoba First Nations Police Service is warning the people of Sandy Bay First Nation and surrounding area that there is a dangerous supply of drugs circulating in the community. Police say earlier this week they responded to 3 separate incidents where individuals had consumed drugs and had lost consciousness. And in one case, Narcan had to be used to save the life of an individual. Authorities are cautioning anyone who has purchased or plans to consume illicit drugs in Sandy Bay that they could be risking their life. Police are encouraging anyone with information on the source of the dangerous drugs to come forward and report it to them. In a statement to its members on social media, Sandy Bay First Nation says there have been a few unintentional overdoses in the community over the past 24 hours. Luckily, these individuals were able to receive medical assistance in time to save their lives. Avoid Purple Down, says the statement. It is a highly dangerous drug. It is a mixture of fentanyl, carfentanil, and often heroin, and it can be cut with other drugs. The chief of the Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation in northern Alberta is accusing the province's energy regulator of what he calls environmental racism after they fined Imperial Energy $50,000 for a toxic spill. Chief Alan Adam called the amount meager. On Thursday, the province concluded Imperial broke environmental law when toxic wastewater seeped outside their boundaries in 2022. Chief Adams' community lies downstream from the site. He says oil companies routinely get away with wrongdoings because there are no severe consequences. Although the $50,000 fine is the maximum allowed under Alberta law, Imperial reported $1.1 billion in income in its second quarter of 2024. Chief Adams says surrounding Indigenous communities were not told of the spill for 9 months. They're suing the provincial regulator for failing to keep them informed. Ottawa's capital parade gets underway. Pride parade gets underway on Sunday, but this year's edition is generating a fair amount of controversy after organizers released a solidarity statement with Palestinians earlier this month. APTN's Fraser Needham talked to 2 Indigenous people who are involved in the parade, and both say the solidarity statement was the right thing to do.
Last year's Pride Parade was a crowded and rousing success. Kelly Robinson was surprised when Capital Pride approached her to be Grand Marshal for this year's edition of the parade.
They were like, we really, love your advocacy, how you use your voice and how authentic you are, and we would really love for you to come join us for Capital Pride. And so
they are a Cree Filipino Two-Spirit actress and model
I would love to.
Who says the decision to release the solidarity statement came after extensive meetings with Pride community members.
There were a lot of discussions with other organizations around Ottawa, like there's Queers for Palestine and like a bunch of other, like I think also Palestinians in healthcare in Ottawa, and they all came together and they have been talking about everything that's been going on across the world. And I think Pride really saw that and they wanted to be able to be like, hey, like, I want to let you know that I support this, I'm with you guys.
But the solidarity statement has led to a number of people and organizations boycotting this year's Pride Parade. This includes Ottawa's Mayor Mark Sutcliffe, Carleton University, Loblaws, the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, and the Liberal Party of Canada. A sticking point for a number of groups is characterizing what Palestinians are experiencing by Israeli forces as genocide. But Robinson says there is no question it is a genocide.
And what people tend to do when genocides are talked about is they kind of make it about themselves, when that's not the case. You know, we're just trying to acknowledge what's happening and to share support on it, and it doesn't mean that we're trying to tear other people down in that sense. And I think some people took it as like an attack on them, which I don't believe that was what Capital Pride was trying to do at all.
Patience Blush is a local indigiqueer burlesque dancer who is also part of the Pride Parade. They agree the parade has always been a platform to stand up for those experiencing oppression, including Palestinians.
Right, we should be talking about it. We should be, amplifying the voices of marginalized communities. And so, yeah, I think Pride's kind of was like, all right, like let's take a step in the right direction and let's do this. Like, we hear our community, we see you. So let's make sure that they feel supported.
Blush adds, in particular, many Indigenous people feel they have no choice but to stand up for Palestine.
The existence of a group of people is currently right now being erased. And that's a genocide. Like, we need to stop that. And so I think a lot of Indigenous people are like, these are people who are Indigenous to their land, who are going through something that we, went through. And we also know the long-term effects of this.
Groups boycotting the parade also say that by releasing the solidarity statement, Pride organizers have created an unsafe space for the Jewish community. But Robinson says this couldn't be further from the truth.
I think Pride is one of the safest places I have ever encountered. Pride is a place to be able to be yourself and to celebrate each other and to uplift one another. It has never been a place of harming people, of putting others down. It's always been about creating space and uplifting voices.
The original parade route had to be cut in half. The reduced police presence cited as the reason. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Time for a quick break, and then the fallout over a street name change that was rejected in Regina. Stick around. Welcome back. After the rejection of a name change for Dewdney Avenue in Regina during Wednesday's council meeting, some of the Indigenous community say they are frustrated, feeling this is a step backwards in the reconciliation process. But as CTV's Angela Stewart tells us, there are some people that feel now is not the time to invest a large amount of money into a name swap.
It feels like it's turning their back on the Indigenous community.
A name change for a stretch of road that runs from one end of Regina to the other, shot down by council in a vote of 7-3, has some members within the Indigenous community outraged.
Discovering Dewdney's legacy, it's horrific. For some reason, Regina wants to hold on to this legacy.
Big Eagle Kakadaway has been fighting for a name change for years. She says this decision does not feel like a step towards reconciliation.
We have a letter from Reconciliation Regina. We have support, over 600 signatures from this community. So I'm not sure who the mayor and council are listening to in terms of their idea of what reconciliation looks like.
Mayor Sandra Masters believes money to rename a street could be better utilized in other areas.
Fundamentally, I think that I can't get there into renaming a street thinking that that's going to solve problems. I don't think it's going to. I think if you invest in youth programs or knock down burnt out properties, that's a way better spend of money, I think, in terms of uplifting and having an impact on how people feel about their city.
One business owner along the major roadway agrees now is not the time to invest in a name change.
The additional expense at this time would make things even more difficult. So I think if a decision was made for a name change and enough time was given where we could prepare and allocate resources to accommodate that change, then that would be much easier for us to deal with.
Big Eagle Kakadaway says she won't stop fighting to have Dewdney's name removed from the avenue, calling for a cost-benefit analysis and an educational campaign to be completed in another step towards reconciliation on one of Regina's busiest roads. Angela Stewart, CTV News, Regina.
A cap on the amount of funding available for searches of unmarked graves at former residential school sites was met with widespread condemnation, so much so that the federal government recently had to reverse the decision. For more on this, I spoke with Kimberly Murray, the independent special interlocutor for missing children and unmarked graves associated with Indian residential schools earlier today. Kim, thanks so much for being with us here today. The Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations acknowledged that the federal government made a mistake when it capped money towards searches for unmarked graves at former residential schools. What did it say to you that they did initially cap the funding with little to no consultation?
It was quite a shock to all the communities that are currently being funding or seeking funding. And to be clear, they didn't just cap it, they cut it, and they cut activities that communities were able to use the funds for. Specifically, they removed at the time the ability for communities to commemorate or memorialize the unmarked graves, meaning they wouldn't pay to put headstones or any kind of plaque on the grounds of the burials.
What does removing the cap mean for communities? Do we have a sense of how many are doing this, how much money might be needed to complete the work?
Yeah, well, I believe there's still a cap. It's just significantly higher. So I believe they've gone back to the $3 million cap per year per community that are doing searches. I have not received any correspondence from Canada explaining the new criteria and how they're going to assess applications. So we're going to have to see what they're doing when communities put in their funding proposals. But I think what's really difficult with this whole process is that Canada is treating this like it's a program. That searching for the unmarked burials of children is a program, and it is not a program. These are disappeared children, and they were disappeared by the state. And the state, Canada, the federal government, has international legal obligations to support communities that are doing this work. It shouldn't matter how much it costs or how long it's going to take. because they have those international obligations to support this very sacred and important work.
You know, you've been digging through documents for many years that are many years old and seeing how Canada has the role that they've played in all this. Is this kind of a continuation of this, making this so hard to get the funding, not knowing what the funding can be used for, just really making it difficult, I guess, for communities out there?
Absolutely. And when we talk about records, it's not just getting the records from Canada and the churches. There's many other archives that hold records. And so there should be no limit on how many archives you can go in to get the records to bring the data back to the community to help identify the children.
As we mentioned, you know, we're approaching the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and we mentioned you've been in the trenches with this for not just the last 2 years, but a pretty good chunk of your life. How will you be reflecting this September 30th?
Well, I'm going to be out in Alberta, going to a number of gatherings that are being hosted by organizations and survivor groups, and speaking at those. I think it's really important that everybody realize that, you know, September 30th is not a day of celebration. It's a day of remembering. It's a day of memorializing. It's a day of mourning. And so, you know, it's a solemn day, and that everyone should reflect on the history and on the truths that survivors have been sharing for decades. And I encourage all Canadians to, you know, on that day, even pick up the report that I released in June called Sites of Truth, Sites of Conscience. Read the TRC report and reflect on their lives and their role and importance in contributing to reconciliation.
Yeah, you mentioned your other report there that just came out a couple months or so ago. Just really thorough and an important report. Your work is wrapping up soon with the final report coming, a final gathering coming. What do you think people should expect with that?
Well, yes, my report's going to be released on October 29th, where I'll be making, as my mandate calls me to do, make recommendations for a new legal framework to protect the burial grounds of the children. So I will release that on October 29th, and then after the gathering, spend some time meeting with government officials and Indigenous leadership and survivors to speak more about the findings and the recommendations that I'll be making.
Kimberly Murray, appreciate, as always, you taking some time for us here. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're heading back to Member 2 for the latest on the Mi'kmaq Games, coming up after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Stephen, originally from Treaty 9 territory in northern Ontario, took this photo at Bow Lake, Alberta, with the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains while he was on vacation just a couple of weeks ago. Lucky you. Thanks, Stephen. You can send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, 26 for Fredericton and Halifax. 22 with showers in Kuujjuaq, sun's out, and 22 in Nain. 26 under sunny skies in Montreal, showers in 23 in Val-d'Or. Rain in 25 in Sault Ste. Marie, 26 with showers in North Bay. Sun's out in 27 in Thunder Bay, 29 in Sioux Lookout. In northern Manitoba, smoky and 27 for God's Lake and Norway House. 30 in Winnipeg, 29 in Dauphin. 30 in Regina, showers, and 29 in Saskatoon. 26 in Meadow Lake, 22 with rain in Buffalo Narrows. Showers across northern Alberta, 17 in High Level, 19 in Fort Chip. 21 with rain in Edmonton, sunny, and 23 in Lethbridge. 19 with showers for Vancouver, 18 in rain in Kamloops. 21 with showers in Prince George, cloudy, and 20 in Smithers. 15 with rain in Old Crow, partly cloudy, and 15 in Whitehorse. 16 in Yellowknife, a sunny high of 20 for Norman Wells. Plus 3 in Sax Harbor, 11 in Pawlatuck. 15 for Chesterfield and Whale Cove, 16 in Arviat. 4 in Resolute, 13 in Joe Haven. The Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Summer Games continued today. Hundreds of athletes, coaches, and supporters from Mi'kmaq nations embody team spirit and culture, which is at the heart of the Games. APTN's Angel Moore brings us up to date.
I'm here at the Powwow Grounds at the Member 2 First Nation, where culture and sport come together in friendly competition. 2 teams from Eskasoni competed at the under-16 volleyball matches. Team Waigogama won by default because one Eskasoni team didn't show up. And on the next court, Team Millbrook took the win from the other Eskasoni team. But even with the losses, Team Eskasoni has the highest medal count at 103, with Member 2 second at 72 medals. Skylar Kondo of Team Waigogama says the medal count is well deserved.
Eskasoni and Member 2 are just two different types of reserves. Eskasoni is a very strong reserve. So is Member 2. They know how to play well. They know how to get the medals. So yeah, not surprising they got all the medals.
At the Powwow Grounds, the Waltis competition began with the under-17 players. It's a traditional Mi'kmaq game that uses dice and a wooden bowl. And it was once banned by the Catholic Church. Madeline Paulette of the Eskasoni First Nation says Waltis connects elders and youth and revives the Mi'kmaq language.
Because all these parts of the game are in Mi'kmaq, and it's a game that just being with an elder and that you can play with them and be on the same level as them. It's not somebody's higher than you, and it's not. It's a game of equal.
Rowan Francis is 9 years old, from the Eskasoni First Nation. He has played Waltis since he was 6 years old and is learning to speak Mi'kmaq.
So I know the tradition and the language is dying. And I can speak Mi'kmaq words right now, like Nain, Delis, and Rowan. I can say that, at least. And
a spectator watches in the distance. World Waltis champion Molly Piero is from the Wagmatcook First Nation. Piero will master her skill when she competes later today, holding her secret to success.
It's a game of chance. If you win, you're lucky. But you got to have a little strategy. But I'm not going to tell anybody my strategy.
I've been doing this thousands of years.
Francis agrees winning is sweet, but it is also about having fun.
Waltis is a game where you keep on having fun and you make friends on the way when you're playing. And at the last, when you lose, you got to shake hands because it's all about fun. Now, whatever going on, you always for fun.
The games continue until Sunday, but Friday is the Princess Pageant competition finale, where the Queen will be crowned. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Member 2 First Nation, Unamagi, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton.
Awesome stuff. Looks like it's been a great week out there. A new exhibit at the National Gallery of Canada highlights what the idea of home is through an artist's lens. It showcases 16 pieces by 6 artists. The work of 2 Indigenous artists is included in the collection. Annette Francis met up with one of them.
Anishinaabe artist Frank Shebega brought his own rendition of home to this exhibit. It includes blueprints for this res home, similar to the one he grew up in at Upsala, Ontario.
There was like the personal, but then there was also like the political, historical context of the house. So I like the idea of these different layers that go with the work.
The name of the exhibit is Home, a space of sharing and strength. The artist's depiction show good memories of home and family gatherings, but also the legacy of trauma and colonialism. Andrea Kennard says it's an important subject.
The works in this exhibition talk about the disruptions that have occurred throughout a lot of the world, in North America and beyond, in Africa specifically, and the Caribbean, where people have just been torn from their land, their community, and their cultures. And a lot of the artists in this exhibition are looking how can we redress this.
Shebega feels proud to have his work included in the same gallery as other Indigenous artists.
There's Radical Stitch across in the next room, which is a beadwork show. Shelley Nero's retrospective downstairs, and I did see that there's a room with Alex Janvier's work, who just passed away, and Christy Belcourt's work is in the next room, and a close friend of mine, Marianne Nicholson, is downstairs as well. So to show with them, yeah, it's an honor for sure.
The home exhibit will be on display until mid-December. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
That is all the time we have for your Friday edition of your APTN National News. You can always stay up to date on the very latest by visiting our website, aptnnews.ca. Special thanks to Zach Bowser, who's heading back to school and been with us all summer. Good luck to him. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy McGuitch, thanks for being with us. Have a great night.